my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome back to your detailed forecast update for Saturday the 7th of December 2024. We have a lot to get through today. We're going to start off just recapping on some thunderstorms that have occurred over New South Wales and Victoria before we head over into Queensland, talk about the weather up in the far north, the rainfall that's on the way for the south central coastline, and then into the southeast of Queensland where we do have some storms later on this weekend. We'll also talk about a tropical low offshore from Western Australia and a tropical band of moisture expected to impact the Northern Territory and Queensland later on in the forecast period. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. The support lately has been much appreciated, but we're going to get stuck straight into things today, like I said, over in New South Wales, just for the next couple of minutes. You can see the satellite loop that I was just showing you shows the rainfall as well. You can see there has been some significant falls around into the southeast of New South Wales, especially into the mountainous areas. Mount Ginini outside of Canberra picked up 65 millimetres overnight. Accumulations weren't as grand as expected on the forecast, and the reason for that was the thunderstorms that were meant to happen up this morning, into the early hours of this morning, actually around the southern parts of New South Wales, especially around the Victoria and New South Wales border. They really didn't come into fruition. I mean, there were still a few good thunderstorms here and there, but they were meant to be a lot more significant than what they actually were. So the thunderstorms there really didn't materialise quite nicely, and you can still see the forecast model suggesting that there's meant to be plenty of thunderstorms around the Orange and the Parkes area. But if we kind of have a look at that on the satellite and the radar imagery, yeah, there are a couple of storms around here, but there's nothing really significant. And when there is a couple of thunderstorms around, the rainfall rates really aren't that substantial either. So the rainfall has been pretty disappointing, to say the least, around the southeastern parts of New South Wales. Not that they needed much more rainfall, but again, another 20 or 30 millimetres for a lot of locations would have been nice. And although a lot of locations have picked up some decent falls, it doesn't look like there's anything really substantial in the gauges apart from in those mountainous areas. There will be a host of thunderstorms tonight, stretching from a line between White Cliffs and Wilcannia right through the central parts of New South Wales, through Cobar and Tottenham, and then across towards Parkes and Orange. These thunderstorms here likely to be non-severe. We could still see some heavier falls around the Cobar and Nyngan area, and a couple of heavier or moderate to heavy falls around the Parkes and the Orange area associated with thunderstorms later on this afternoon, but again, nothing to write home about. These thunderstorms moving steadily towards the northeast, but they don't really make it into the northeast of New South Wales, and Narrabri and Tamworth could see a couple of showers and storms much later on tonight and into very early tomorrow morning, but it really doesn't look like there's too much on the card. Sydney receiving a few showers throughout the remainder of this morning. It's going to be a hot one down there, 32 degrees. It's in fact going to be pretty warm right across the New South Wales northeast as well. Grafton expecting a top of 34, and it's going to be a humid one as well, so make sure you are staying cool and staying hydrated on a day like today. Now, heading into the forecast for tomorrow, you can see these thunderstorms do fire up a little bit harder into the northeast of New South Wales, especially between a line of Grafton down to about Kempsey and Taree into the central coast of New South Wales, north of Newcastle. We're likely to see one or two severe thunderstorms with moderate to heavy rainfall, most likely on the heavier side of things around Grafton and Coffs Harbour. The conditions for thunderstorms are basically perfect, and you can see a little, or you might be able to see it if you've got a really good eye, but what we're going to be having is northeasterly winds coming in from the Coral Sea and the northern parts of the Pacific Ocean. The southeasterly winds bring those cool, dry conditions, and then those warm, dry conditions all converging in this area here. And if we cross-reference that with the convective available potential energy index as well, you can see plenty of energy in the atmosphere. There's really going to be quite a substantial amount of energy for these thunderstorms to make the most of, coupled with high humidity values, good temperature values as well. I mean, it really is going to be a good day for thunderstorms into the northeast of New South Wales, specifically around that Grafton and Coffs Harbour area. The convective models haven't really picked up on this just yet by the looks of things. I mean, they're still calling for some substantial thunderstorms, but it doesn't look like they've picked up on it too hard yet. The Access C model for the Brisbane area is really calling for some gnarly thunderstorms though around the Nambucca Heads and outside of Coffs Harbour and Ebor. And this is the sort of stuff that I was hoping to see on the forecast to kind of be in a good, confident position to call for some gnarly, severe thunderstorms, because it certainly does look like those gnarly, severe thunderstorms are on the cards for tomorrow. Like I said, heavy rainfall, the isolated threat of damaging and locally destructive winds, also with these thunderstorms as well, medium to large size hailstones. I don't foresee the chance of hailstones being too high with this thunderstorm event here. I just think it is going to be mainly a rainfall problem at this time, and the convective models as well calling for a boatload of rainfall. I mean, just take a look at this here over the next couple of hours, the next 24 hours. The rainfall accumulations under the right conditions outside of Dorrigo could be up towards 180, 190 millimetres from these thunderstorms. Now, of course, this is a convective forecast model, so it does do really, really well with thunderstorms, but we do have to take this with a very, very heavy pinch of salt. Thunderstorms won't fire up exactly the way the forecast model that I've just shown you is suggesting, but it does give you a good idea of where the wettest accumulations will be, where those thunderstorms could be, and just what conditions are expected in also. I am saying that rainfall accumulations above 100 millimetres are well and truly possible tomorrow evening with these thunderstorms, and they're also most likely to fire up in this area before heading further north of Ybor and Coffs Harbour and up towards Grafton and Yamba, potentially making it as far north as Lismore by later on in the evening. But it really doesn't look like Lismore is going to be expecting much if they do receive any thunderstorm conditions at all. If we just get it back to what we were looking at, yeah, Lismore will see a couple of thunderstorms here and there, but nothing in the crazy way of heavy rainfall and mad lightning. Into the southeast of Queensland as well, not looking too bad either for thunderstorms. I mean, you can see a couple do swing up into the southeast of the state at around 8 or 9 p.m. later on into the night outside of Brisbane. They should keep themselves out of the Brisbane metro area, same deal with the Gold Coast as well, and just remain a little bit further inland out towards Kingaroy. We could see a couple of late night displays of some great lightning and also some heavy rainfall as well. So again, make sure you are prepared for potentially severe thunderstorms out there. In terms of the Sunshine Coast risk, it really doesn't look that high. I mean, you can see convective available potential energy values. They are not grand for these thunderstorms at all. In fact, they're about 5 times lower than what a good day would be for this time of the year. So again, we don't really have that much instability and that much energy in the environment. Still, though, temperatures and humidity not looking too shabby for these storms either. Either way, still the chance of severe thunderstorms into the southeast of Queensland, it just obviously isn't anywhere near as high as the chance of severe thunderstorms into the northeast of New South Wales. And while we are in the southern or south central parts of Queensland, I would like to talk about the central coast of Queensland as well. So we do have some more thunderstorms expected to fire up pretty much only inland on Monday afternoon as well. These thunderstorms will pick themselves up in intensity as well throughout Tuesday. You can see they're pretty widespread around the Roma, Injune and Chinchilla area, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw severe thunderstorms again on Tuesday afternoon down here with some heavy rainfall, plenty of lightning as well, and some damaging winds here and there. And all of this is going to be developing from a low pressure system and a surface trough extending across the interior parts of Queensland. That's very important to keep in mind. Not only will this cause the temperatures around the Longreach and Winton area to skyrocket, I mean, you can see already by about midday on Tuesday, temperatures well into the mid-40s for parts of Longreach and Winton and outside of those locations as well, about 43 or 44 for places. And then as the day draws on, these thunderstorms really do extend along this trough line here, or this surface trough line, right into the southeast of Queensland as well, tending to rainfall at times. You can see showers and storms here and there into the southeast of Queensland. Some good thunderstorms as well expected into the northeast of New South Wales. So Tuesday will also be a day to watch for severe thunderstorms from New South Wales and also into the south central parts of Queensland. But more importantly is how this rainfall develops on Wednesday. You can see plenty of heavy rainfall expected around Chinchilla and Kingaroy Wednesday morning. Again, this is just the forecast this time, so things are very likely to change, but we will likely see late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning the remnant energy of these thunderstorms developing into a rainfall band extending between Augathella through Injune and Roma and Taroom, and then across towards Chinchilla and Kingaroy into the southeast of Queensland, potentially providing Brisbane with 25 or 30 millimetres before then 9 a.m. on Wednesday. We'll also likely see a couple of thunderstorms in the wake of that as well later on Wednesday afternoon, but again, nothing crazy. Then further up into the central parts of Queensland, you can see along this surface trough extending between Mount Isa right through Maxwellton and Huendon, a couple of good thunderstorms expected Wednesday afternoon, and then that surface trough continues into the central coast of Queensland, and finally for areas around Ogmore, Rockhampton, Agnes Water, Gladstone and Bundaberg, these poor parched communities, finally some actually reliable rainfall is now looking like it is going to come onto the forecast here, and you can see through Wednesday we're expecting showers, not too heavy but still moderate at times around the Agnes Water and Gladstone area, also extending down towards Bundaberg and into the northern reaches of the Sunshine Coast at Hervey Bay. Again, don't get your hopes up. The rainfall here, it is good, but it's still only about 6 or 7 millimetres over the 1 hour period, and rainfall accumulations here aren't expected to be anything special, just a couple of millimetres in the gauge. But we could still be seeing accumulations, a very welcome 10 to 15, maybe up towards 25 millimetres around Agnes Water and Gladstone, and if they get a thunderstorm embedded in that, the rainfall accumulations could shoot up even further from there. Good rainfall accumulations as well expected Wednesday afternoon and evening from thunderstorms around the Moranbah and Glendon area inland from Mackay. It looks like they're going to get a bit of an onshore flow there, and the showers are going to be heavy, but the heavy rain stops at around Ogmore. Still a couple of heavier showers expected down towards Rockhampton, but nothing making it further south than that. And just over this kind of couple of day rainfall event here, so starting from Monday night through Tuesday and Wednesday and into early Thursday morning, just from these thunderstorms that are expected to blow up here. This is a 3-day rainfall accumulation map. Now, you can see accumulations pretty widespread above the 25 millimetre mark, around that 30 to 40 millimetre, extending up towards 60 or 70 millimetres outside of Augathella and then up towards Rolleston as well. Chinchilla and Kingaroy, of course, with the heaviest falls, just with that rainfall does materialise there, or the heavier band of rainfall does materialise and develop in this area. We'll be looking at accumulations up towards 100 to 125 millimetres. It does look entirely plausible at this time. And then across the central coast, Mackay expecting about 30 millimetres, potentially a little bit more from that onshore flow. Furthermore, rainfall out towards Glendon and Moranbah as well, up up towards 25 to 40 millimetres there. Ogmore expecting about 20 millimetres, Rockhampton same deal, about 20 millimetres, the majority of that coming through on Wednesday, and then Agnes Water, Gladstone and Bundaberg expecting somewhere between that 15 to 30 millimetre mark. Again, I wouldn't get your hopes up for rainfall there, but a couple of good showers coming your way on Wednesday, and again, much needed rainfall for those locations, but it is, like I said, not 150 or 200 millimetres over 3 days that they do desperately need. Still though, there will be showers continuing through Thursday and also in towards Friday. In fact, we're going to see a bit of a low pressure system develop in the Coral Sea by around Thursday. I wouldn't go as far to call this a Coral Sea tropical low, but it certainly is going to have some tropical characteristics. The low pressure system will be rotating, there will be some stronger winds extending along to the coastline, and just constant showers throughout Thursday, Friday and into early Saturday morning for locations between Townsville, including Mackay, Rockhampton, Gladstone and Bundaberg, and right down into the northern reaches of the Sunshine Coast. Now, the other forecast models, they're calling for something or other to happen on the forecast here, most likely around that kind of that Thursday or Friday thing, whether it is rainfall or a bit of an onshore flow for this part of Queensland, extending between Townsville and down towards Hervey Bay, but they're not really confident with some kind of spin-up low-pressure system. The Axis G3 calling for it, but the Axis G3 has a huge bias to spin-up low-pressure systems, and you can see here plenty of rainfall expected Friday and Saturday along the central Queensland coastline. And just considering the forecast here, considering the congruency between the eastern belt and the Axis G3, I'd also go as far to say that bar Thursday, Friday and Saturday might have a couple of good showers in store for locations between Mackay and Hervey Bay. It is still just a little bit too early to tell at this time, but at this time it does look like, at least on the forecast and what the forecast is saying, there will be some good showers, perhaps up towards 50 millimetres for Friday and another 30 millimetres on Saturday, and coupled with 20 millimetres that's coming through on Wednesday for the areas around Rockhampton and Gladstone and Agnes Water. That will equate to some pretty significant rainfall accumulations in excess of 100 millimetres for these locations, or these parched locations of Queensland. Again, much needed rainfall, they do desperately need it. They're not in full-blown drought conditions yet, but they're still really struggling for rainfall at this time, and you can see soil moisture values in this area, and it's not a widespread event. It is just between kind of Yeppoon and Rockhampton down to about Bundaberg. Everywhere else across Queensland, and to be frank, Australia as a whole is above average on the soil moisture values, or at least not struggling. It's just this little pocket of Queensland here. So this rainfall here might just tip the scales into a wetter period for them, which would be much appreciated for them and much needed as well for them. Looking beyond that though, there will be a couple of showers just continuing through the parts or the early parts of next week or next fortnight. Again, that's pretty typical for this time of the year. All in all, it looks like we're going to be getting a bit of a monsoonal burst, if not some substantial rainfall across interior parts of Queensland over the coming couple of weeks. It certainly does look like they're moving into a bit of a wetter phase now, and you can see that between the rainfall accumulations over the next 10 days looking pretty healthy indeed. In fact, over the next 14 days rather, looking very healthy indeed across a lot of Queensland. Rainfall accumulations in excess of 120 millimetres, as you can see by those deep blues. Those include locations around the far north Queensland, the Cassowary Coast. Cairns expecting about 100 millimetres, Townsville as well expecting between 80 and 100 millimetres. And then, like I said, from that onshore flow that's going to be piping up on Wednesday and Thursday, Friday and Saturday into the Mackay area, rainfall accumulations approaching 200 millimetres there. Rockhampton a healthy 100 millimetres or so, Gladstone hopefully around that 80 to 100 millimetre mark, and then down towards Bundaberg as well, some decent rainfall there up towards 115 millimetres. Rainfall accumulations further inland though, they're not going to be that good still, though plenty of rainfall expected to go around in Queensland. The majority of the state expecting between 10 and 30 millimetres over the next 14 days, and it really is just wet season stuff now. Exciting to see, and I imagine this is making a lot of people very happy. Now, I'm going to split the tropical cyclone forecast into two for this video here. After this, we'll take a look over in Western Australia, but we do have a tropical low interest, at least, over in the northern parts of the Gulf of Carpentaria and also across far northern Queensland. So this is certainly something that I do want to give a little bit of airtime to later on in the forecast period, and when I say later, I do mean towards the end of the forecast period. You can see we are going to be seeing a bit of a westerly flow into the Timor Sea and then into the Gulf of Carpentaria. Now, this is indicative of how tropical lows begin to form. You can already start to see a bit of a spin-up now starting to take place throughout. This is the 16th and the 17th of December here, but you can start to see that spin up north of kind of Cape Wessel into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and this spin up here does slowly materialise, but it will either way, if it does form or not, it will funnel a lot of rainfall along into the Cape York Peninsula and along the Cassowary Coast and the Daintree Rainforest, and you can see it here as this very broad and very weak low pressure system develops north of Arnhem Land and the Northern Territory. We get this rainfall just dragged through the Coral Sea, and that collides with the Queensland coastline. That's what's going to be providing Queensland with its wetter period into next fortnight. And then by the 21st of December here, you can see that low pressure system just starting to tighten off a little bit. Between other forecast models as well, it is also reciprocated in terms of, well, if I can get the GFS forecast model to show on here, but you can see, take my word for it, the GFS is calling for a little bit of a spin up to happen into the Gulf of Carpentaria as well, in a very similar fashion to what the Eastern BF is saying. It's nothing intense or nothing big, and there's no really standout rainfall accumulations either expected on the forecast just yet, but the fact that it is calling for a spin up is just caution for the far north of Queensland to keep a very close eye on the forecast over the next 2 weeks. Now, of course, there is nothing to be concerned about right now. Not until about the 16th or the 17th of December are we actually going to know what's going to be happening up here, but certainly something to keep in the back of your head. It is cyclone season now, so anything can happen at this time of the year, and we do need to be watching the forecast every day and very, very closely indeed. Just something to keep in the back of your head. I didn't mean to worry anyone or make anyone panic. A Christmas cyclone at this time is not being called for on the forecast, and there's really no signal of it either on the long range, so I imagine that is also some good news and some news people would like to hear up in the far north of Queensland. And let's head things over into Western Australia. Just before I talk about the tropical cyclone threat over there, in which there is a lot of detail that we need to crack into, I would just like to talk about the southwest. We do have some heat now on the forecast here. You can see the low pressure system starting to materialise already around the Paraburdoo and Newman area, and that heat is only going to get hotter throughout this week. You can see temperatures tomorrow expected to go up towards 47 degrees outside of Panawonsia. Monday as well is going to be just as hot around Meekatharra and Mount Magnet, up towards 44 and 45 there. Around Kew, that's going to be a stinker for them, their first really hot day of the year. And then the West Coast trough begins to develop on Tuesday. Perth expecting a top of 32 degrees on Tuesday. Wednesday it's going to be up towards 36, and temperatures in excess of 40 degrees outside of Jurien Bay, Geraldton and Kalbarri. Temperatures going up into the 40s for the first time this year by the looks of things around the Perth area. It's going to be a bit of a 50-50 as to whether Perth gets its first 40-degree day on Thursday, but you can see temperatures right up towards 43 degrees around Northam and further inland from there as well, out towards Meckering and Merredin. Temperatures as well are going to be very high. Further inland out and towards the Murchison region, and also into towards the Goldfields region as well. A couple of thunderstorms will likely take hold later on Thursday night just to cool things down. Those temperatures will ease off a little bit for Perth and also the west coast of WA for Friday by the looks of things. They do get shunted a little bit further inland, this low pressure system. It gets dragged away from Western Australia on Saturday, so it looks like it's just going to be Wednesday, Thursday and Friday for the southwest, bar about Perth actually, that's going to receive some really warm days. I wouldn't go as far to say at this time of the year 36 or 37 degrees is warm for Perth, and considering that's on the forecast, I wouldn't really call this a heat wave for Perth. That would be very much stretching the term of a heat wave, so I think that that's a little bit of an unnecessary comparison to draw this to, but certainly further inland where we're going to be seeing 3 or 4 days above 42 degrees Celsius around that Killarney and Morawa area, I would definitely be calling that a heat wave. Even for this time of the year, it is going to get quite warm out there indeed. And then, like I said, on Saturday these temperatures get dragged out into the Goldfields and across the Nullarbor. Take a look at this. It's just going to be a stinker here. Extreme fire danger ratings, and I expect some pretty substantial bushfires on Saturday and Sunday into the Goldfields and into the Nullarbor region. Sunday the temperatures get dragged into South Australia, and the poor critters in South Australia, especially along the coastline here. Temperatures up towards 46 or 47 degrees expected there. Whyalla, a day of 43. Port Augusta as well, 43 degrees. Cooper Pedy, Roxby Downs, 43. Maralinga, 44. And then those temperatures up towards the 43 and 44 out towards Moomba and Bedoria in the western parts of Queensland, rather. It's going to be a hot one, that's for sure, in South Australia. You can see temperatures as well pretty high on Monday too. So certainly stay cool. That's a bit of a heads up for South Australia. You do have some warm weather coming in, but again, this is this time of the year very typical stuff indeed. And now moving up the coastline offshore from Western Australia, where we do have the twin tropical low / tropical cyclone threat over the coming couple of days, and it's a lot closer now than people might be thinking. Time has flown over the last couple of days. We have tropical low 02U over here northwest of the Cocos Keeling Islands, and that's spinning itself up quite nicely right now, and you can see it on the satellite imagery. It's nothing special, but it's still starting to develop a low pressure system here, and it really is starting to develop a lower level center as well, which is indicative of this system now beginning to become a tropical low or a fully fledged tropical cyclone. However, the chances of that system only at around 35 or 40% at this time, and I'm not overly keen on it actually getting itself together into a tropical cyclone. I just don't really foresee that happening, not at least before this system gets itself going. Tropical 04U offshore from Western Australia here, spinning itself up quite nicely through Sunday and into Monday, becoming a fully fledged tropical cyclone on this forecast here by Monday evening, picking up the name of Tropical Cyclone Sean, most likely, as it moves much to the north of Karratha. No real threat to Western Australia. It will still provide some heavy rainfall across the Pilbara region and into the Kimberley region as well, from showers and thunderstorms on Monday and Tuesday, before it drags all the moisture out of the Kimberley and Western Australia as a whole. Throughout Tuesday, it's likely to reach peak intensity on this forecast here, suggesting a peak intensity of about Category 3 status, of winds up towards 170 kilometres an hour. It certainly is going to be quite a strong one indeed. As it pulls further away into the Indian Ocean, it will begin to steadily weaken off on Wednesday and Thursday. You can see it becoming a remnant low sometime next weekend. So it's going to be a short-lived system, but it still could pack a punch, especially if you are planning on travelling through this part of Western Australia into the Kimberley region. We're going to be and the Pilbara region. There's going to be plenty of thunderstorms into the middle parts of this week as well from this system. But in terms of an actual cyclonic punch, it's going to be nothing. Now, this forecast here, the GFS forecast, not only is the GFS, generally speaking, the most reliable model in the 10-day forecast period, this also lines up with the Bureau of Meteorology's own forecast model, the Access G3. They're calling for very similar circumstances at this time for this system, and I do reckon that this storm here, even though it's not likely to become anything crazy, it's not really got a chance of becoming super strong. In fact, it's most likely to remain its entire life as a weak system. It will be heading offshore from Western Australia, steadily intensifying through Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, before weakening off after Wednesday and through Thursday and Friday, but dying off this weekend. No impacts, of course, expected on Western Australia, or no cyclonic impacts at least expected along Western Australia, but expect elevated swells through Wednesday and Thursday along the Pilbara coastline, and also expect a little bit of rainfall on both Tuesday and Wednesday from the outer bands of this system. Now, into next week as well, beyond this weekend, we do have another system expected to spin itself up off the Kimberley region. The GFS has been calling for this system for the last couple of days now, but it has really backed down on the intensity forecast. Now, in terms of a comparison to this system, it's pretty much going to be a carbon copy of the system prior to a tropical cyclone Sean. This one forming, though, about a week later, and you can see Wednesday, once again, at peak intensity on the 18th of December, south of Indonesia, about halfway between Western Australia and Indonesia, so very far away from the coastline, and again, no real threat to land at this time. The system does then have a bit of a second round of intensification much further offshore, but again, this is looking really long range, and the forecast can get notoriously unreliable at that time. And then another system here expected to spin up north of the Northern Territory in Western Australia, conveniently right in time for Christmas, and if it does make a landfall on Australia, it will be around that Christmas time, sometime on the 23rd or the 24th of December. Again, take this forecast with a very heavy pinch of salt, because it isn't expected between the other forecast models either, but there is certainly the chance of the second tropical cyclone later on next week offshore from Western Australia, and then there is also the chance of this system as well, so we will keep that in the back of our heads. If I've left your head spinning about the tropical cyclone forecast, or if you've got any questions or comments, or you'd like a detailed forecast from these cyclones for your location as well, then please do let me know in the comment section down below. But this video's gone for long enough again. That is all that I have time for today as well. Thank you so much for watching the video. Special shout out to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and I could not run this show without them, but that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.